Hello and welcome back to the Captain's Table podcast, where we talk about Star Citizen lore, news, and more. I'm your humble host, Mr. Paul, the Astropub, Astro Historian Shelley. I am your humble host and space bartender for the Astropub, your professor on the Astro Historian, and your moderator here on the Captain's Table podcast. Literally, Space Mando just raided right as we got started. But we've got an interesting topic today. We've talked about this a little bit, and we're going to probably talk about this a couple more times before the end of the year, simply because I think a lot of folks are really underestimating the impact that this has on the game, both in terms of its popularity and its pitch. Like its main sort of I guess it's pitch. Yeah, it's a pitch. It's the thing that people will remember it for. I don't think people will necessarily remember Star Citizen and Squadron 42 as VR games, but I do think that kind of like how Crisis is remembered as being like it's going to melt your graphics card for when you just turn it on low. I think that's kind of what the angle for VR being so important for it as it was. Anywho, before we get started and talk a little bit about Star Citizen VR, the future of Star Citizen VR and Squad 42 in VR, I'm going to introduce the folks we have here today. First, we're going to have a regular you've seen before, Mr. Red J. Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen, and where can they find you?
Hey, so Red J here. I make content on YouTube for Star Citizen, all sorts of different stuff. Also make content for other games, and one of the things we were talking about today, VR technologies and such like that. And mainly lately has been XR and Vision Pro and such, and excited about a few of the technologies coming up, such as the frame. You can find me at youtube.com/c/redj, I think, off the top of my head. But my channel is great. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for having me on, Paul.
No problem. It's always good to have you come back. I know Red J does some lore stuff, so I didn't know that Red J was also into to VR stuff, because when I posted, hey, we're doing VR, Red J was immediately like, want this. I was like, Red J does VR? And then he explained it today, like, what's going on, so...
Everybody's got a headset in the closet that they are just itching to take out. And let me tell you, Star Citizen seems to have scratched that itch.
I pulled out this after not using it for 2 years, maybe a year. I'd put it on for a couple of games here and there back in the day when I remembered I had it. I used it. I used it before we had the VR stuff because I just got a new rig, built a new rig in earlier in 2025. So I wanted to see how this would work, and it worked pretty well. But there's a lot. So Chachi, who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? And where can they find you?
So I am Chachi Sanchez, the VR citizen. That's the voodoo I do, is playing Star Citizen in VR. I've been doing the setup tutorials using third-party programs for VR for the past few years on my YouTube channel at Chachi_Sanchez. I've been streaming Star Citizen live on Twitch on my Twitch channel, Chachi_Sanchez, and you can find me playing Star Citizen in VR in-game at Chachi_Sanchez. I like to keep everything cohesive across the board. So if you're trying to find me, you should find me with that pretty easily. But I run the VR Discord and the VR Citizen Oregon community. So
and I will say Chachi and I go back a little bit, because Chachi and I have known each other. You've been going to the Bar Citizens pretty regularly, so you could show up the Austin Bar Citizens quite frequently. So we've met each other a lot. He's always, and for the bigger ones, he's always brought the full rig, a full mobile rig for people to play VR. And you've been doing it for like 3 years now when you go to there.
So the big rig, I've only had like the past two, for the one in June and the one in Austin, the one in October, right? But now that it's fully official, I got big plans for Citizen Con with the VR booth, especially if it's coming to Texas or Canada or wherever if it's not in the UK or Germany, basically. Please. And for those that aren't aware, I have a mobile VR cockpit that is on wheels, that has a PC bolted to the front of it, that can literally play VR anywhere, and I take it to VR Citizens and Citizen Cons. So
it's awesome, man.
With VR being the one thing that is a show, don't tell, I took that to heart. I took that personally and made it my agenda to show people exactly what I see in the headset.
He he has been an evangelist for this for years. Is my point of view. Like it's like him and Sylvan have been the ones that like
And I
who won't
first
shut
met
up about
Sylvan
it.
at the LA Citizen Con at like a space tomato gathering, and we like everybody was all talking, you know, and me and Sylvan were like that meme in the corner. They don't know about VR. Well, both of us, everybody was partying and stuff, and me and him were in the corner talking about VR and stuff.
So for those of you who don't know, Star Citizen has had VR since December. If you haven't heard about it, and you're a Star Citizen fan, I'm surprised, very surprised if this is the first time you've heard about it, because it's had experimental VR since 4.4, I want to say, since it was the last patch of the year when they pushed it with engineering.
Yeah, the engineering patch had VR. Who'd have thunk?
And the thing about it is that it's been an experimental since then for the last 3 months. But I will say, from my experience using granted an older headset, it is surprisingly easy to use. The setup takes some fiddling, but it's surprisingly easy to use. And the thing about the VR is that, and this is just one of those problems that just has with VR has, is that you really have to experience it yourself. Watching it is you always know someone's with VR because the head tracker is super dialed in, so your head will the camera will constantly be like little micro adjustments, because like even if the person isn't moving their head at all, and like from their perspective,
If you're
they're like
breathing, it will move your body, which will move your head.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's you can tell if someone's doing the VR stuff. But having played it in VR unofficially and now officially, I can say that it is a different experience. So I'll start with you, Chachi, and then go to Red J. What is VR like right now? Since both of you have done VR in other games as well, what is VR like in Star Citizen right now compared to other games that might have been, dedicated to VR from the beginning? What's the difference?
If you're asking a person from the outside looking in what the difference is between a AAA VR game like Half-Life Alyx and, let's say, Star Citizen's experimental VR tech, is that the VR game you expect to have touch controller support, be able to reach out and grab things and manipulate and shoot guns like you would IRL. From that point of view, it's not full VR, but if you are going back to, let's say, the old CV1, the DK1 days, right? There were no touch controllers, and everybody was just hooking whatever game they could to play anything in VR. And one of the best games to play was, well, Microsoft Flight Simulator or iRacing or other racing games that had head tracking in it. If you can head track and you're sitting in a cockpit, that's a good VR experience. So Star Citizen's native experimental VR experience is a good experience. Walking around and shooting an FPS might be a little bit iffy with only mouse and keyboard support, but it's only going to get better from here with Sylvan dedicated to bringing us all the goodies. So
it's not just Sylvan; it's now Chris is like saw what Sylvan did, and it was just like, here's the money. Because remember, Sylvan did this on his side project on his own time.
And now we got it for Squadron 42, so on launch. So he's got a strike team, I imagine.
We'll talk about this in a moment, but because it's important. It's important to remember that Sylvan did this experimental vote on his own. It was him and a couple other people from the company, so working off book. They were doing it for fun.
So he'd do his 9 to 5, and then clock out and then stay at work, and then basically for another 4 or 5 hours just be working on this. And he did that for the past 12, 15 months, past year and a half or so, and then he whenever he needs something like the UI, like I need this pipeline or whatever to help render this in VR. I need XYZ tracking positioning data from this render type of thing to do this. And he'd go selectively with other teams to get what he needed, but he was basically, the big driving force behind looping it all together in a big old mush that we have now. So,
Reggie, your thoughts. You also have done a lot of different games. How is Star Citizen VR now compared to other VR games?
So I kind of look at it this way. The gold standard, whether people like it or not, is VR chat. And before anybody says they hate VR chat, it's the worst thing ever. VR chat is as good or as bad as the company you choose to keep. I'll leave it at that. But the point is that compared to a great world of VR chat, there is no depth compared to what Star Citizen can offer. And to me, I think that it coming into something that I literally did so little to get started with ALVR. We were talking before this started, getting prepped to everything, and I mentioned I literally ran ALVR directly to my Vision Pro, and I could just run it full stop, just run it streaming wirelessly to the game, and it was like a brand new game to me. Just I joke that Toast, my friend Toast, she's another VR fan. She was basically my Sherpa for the day because she was running mouse and keyboard and no VR, and we spent hours and hours on a Star Lancer Max that my Star Lancer Max just exploring every little nuance and detail. I mean, even just it made me appreciate everything so much more. And I think that's what I have is newfound love and for a game that I've been in since the beginning, and I love it even more now. And if that's what VR brings, then that's what VR brings. Compared to other games, to get back to your topic, I think that it's far more fleshed out than Fallout 4 VR was on launch. That's for damn sure.
I've heard that was a nightmare. I've heard that was a nightmare.
Fallout 4 is good when you have 500 mods attached to it. If Bethesda is behind just the VR itself, it's as good as a Bethesda game. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's better than a AAA VR game right now. It's not on a scale of Fallout 4 VR to Half-Life Alyx 1 to 10. I would give it a 6 right now.
Yeah, that's a solid fair bet.
Oh, and someone is pointing out that Chris has been a VR fan for a long time. To give you context, they had 4 DK or 3 or 4 DK1 Oculus dev kits that for the studio, and one of them is sitting right next to Chachi. That one right there is yeah.
From the Austin, Texas studios I bought from a former developer. We actually got this working with Star Citizen last week without head tracking. We're slowly piecing everything together, but it was burning a hole in his closet and I bought it off of him so that we as a community get to have fun with it now that we have native support. So
amazing.
And it's a nice little piece of history there to know that
and that's the one that most likely Chris Roberts was pew-pewing on in the office in that GIF. So I'm happy to have it here on my shelf.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, the VR in Star Citizen has been a thing since 2013. It was supposed to be a thing in 2013, and they had to turn it off because they were doing other things, and then they were all like, "We'll get back to it when it's a priority." And
so that's actually literally my entire claim to fame is that. So for those that aren't aware, it's Crytek engine. So if you've ever played The Climb in VR, the rock climbing game, that is made by Crytek. That is the same VR engine that was in Star Citizen's hangar module. Now, Sylvan, when he got the job, pulled out that VR renderer because every time they updated the game, it would brick everything and stuff like that. The day that he pulled it out was the day that I couldn't play VR anymore, which means I had to go find setup tutorials to get it working in VR. There were none. So guess what I started doing? Making setup tutorials for Star Citizen in VR. And now the rest is history. So Sylvan himself is directly responsible for my trajectory. If you had just left that code in, I wouldn't have had no job to do. Oh, hang on. Audio is dead.
Sorry, no, I was muted. I muted myself because I was doing clickety clacks. I didn't want to.
Yeah, my keyboard is loud as hell too.
Someone I was asking someone to ask it as a question so that we could get it because the question bot is on for those so we can take questions later. It was a really good question talking about Sean and talking about not having a VR team. So it would be interesting to talk about that. So got Red J, got Chachi. I don't have like I said, I don't really have a perspective. I will just say that the game as it stands right now has, like you, Red J, it gave me a different perspective. You see a freelancer and you go, it's a medium ship. It's not that big. Go stand in VR. Go stand next to a freelancer's landing gear.
Yep.
The engine bell on a Cutlass is like 8 feet across. The engine bell on a Cutlass is it's like a Saturn V rocket. It feels like it's crazy.
It's
the Nova tank is even bigger than stupider than usual.
The Nova tank, you could walk around inside of and you don't realize how stupid that is in a tank until you do it in VR.
Like even the PTV is like feels like climbing into a car. It's not like a small like golf cart. It's like a car.
So I did the Daymar Rally the past 3 years with an all VR team,
Mhm.
right? And we got fifth place, seventh place, fifth place, respectively. I think. So we were so close to getting third. We were fighting for third place the entire race last year, but we just decided to go over the last mountain instead of around it, and we dropped back like 3 places in the end. So, but yeah, it's
So
very fun. It's crazy.
it gives you perspective because one of
There's
the
a real
things that,
Daymar planet. A whole Daymar planet is out there, guys. I drove across it 3 times now. It's there.
Chris has talked about like all of the work that's already been done to set up for like all the stuff that they already did was sort of already laying the groundwork for VR, even if it wasn't intentional. I feel it probably was, but it was intentional for other things as well, just because of like immersion. Chris and his immersion.
It makes it extra. I
Mhm.
agree, but like I was saying earlier, you don't need proper cameras in the eyes to make a good FPS sim game. You don't need proper handling physics and mocapping, rigging, skeletal body frame meshing stuff to make a good FPS sim MMO game. You need all of those things though to make a good VR game, and that's what we're going to be having, it seems.
Yeah.
So
And even FPS, because people have asked me this, it's not like amazing, but it's a lot better than I thought it was going to be. It's pretty
so
intuitive once you play with it. But
So, Red J, did you play with Vorpex? I know you did Astropub with my third-party tutorials and stuff, because that was basically same looking around with head tracking, mouse and keyboard,
yeah,
walking around and stuff. So we were kind of used to it and stuff like that, and I didn't, think it'd be that big of a shock. But the number one thing that I'm hearing is when touch controls,
yeah.
Yeah,
and I'm
pre
fine with mouse
EAC.
and keyboard, but like, yeah,
Vorpex
Red
for
J, what
me
do
was
you?
pre EAC, but it was good. I did do it a few times on my index, and I kind of had this feeling of like I'll really make this again when we have native support for VR, even if it's just experimental like it is now, and that's why I've been doing heavy amounts of VR now again in this game. But oddly enough, one of my most common VR games is Phasmophobia, and one of those games where you can play as VR and your friends, they can or they can't. It's their choice. And it's a wonderful game for that reason. And each side has like an advantage. Like for years, the VR user could carry an extra piece of kit in their extra hand versus the PC users, as they call it.
Oh, I didn't even think about that because you have two hands. Yeah, yeah.
And the
Mhm.
PC users are a little bit quicker on the draw when it comes to popping doors when you're doing your first search.
So
So each side kind of plays to their advantages.
there's
Nice.
another game that's cross VR and not VR. It's not cross console, but whatever term you want to apply to that, what nomenclature you have for it. But the Star Trek Bridge Command
Oh yeah, I
is
love that.
Yeah.
PC players and VR players can play on the same local little 5-man server
Mhm.
instance thing, and just Bridge Command as Star Trek, positions. And if you've played Bridge Command, then imagine it in VR and you're just actually sitting at that console with your touch controllers, hitting and clicking the buttons.
It was
It's
originally a touch control VR game, and then they made
Yep.
it, ported it to everyone. I played it when it was VR touch control, and it was a different experience. Um, um, so let's talk a little bit about full motion control because there's a lot of people who are confused as to what that means. I'll start with you, Red J. And when you hear CIG talking about how they want to do full motion control, are we talking just pull out your, like Oculus controls here? These sort of motion control controllers you get with your kit. Sometimes you can buy separately, or are we talking like full haptic Ready Player One like
Boot suits.
outfits? Yeah.
Yeah, so you can't see it on my because I don't have a camera on, but I'm holding my knuckles right now, as
I
is
got my.
Chachi.
I'm pulling up. I literally have my knuckles on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, the knuckles were like the best evolution of controllers when you can actually do finger tracking. Not all games have it, but
Mhm.
when finger tracking is there, because you can just grip with your fingers without pressing a button. And to me, that's so intuitive. I will say for shooters too, having the trigger, an actual trigger, is great. Vision Pro tracks your hands, but they recently added PCVR2 controllers. So, okay, let's go. Let's take a step back here. So, right now, the game has the headset. Just the HMD is being tracked where you look. And then you're using a keyboard and mouse. And then, of course, HOTAS will slowly but surely be get fully online and stuff perfectly, right? What is being Paul's talking about is the ability to use these controllers or hand tracking or both and be able to physically grab things in the universe. And that is that's like the next stage of evolution for most VR games because you also tracks where your hands go. And then most people say full motion tracking equals full body tracking. So you put a tracker at your waist and at both your ankles, or it tracks through a Kinect style camera or another system and it tracks your legs. One of the most weirdest experiences I ever had was taking a knee in VR chat and literally just picking something up off the ground and it tracked that whole experience. And I was like, wow, I feel like I'm actually here. I feel like I'm actually doing this. And when you can get that to that point where you feel like you're doing it, whatever that means to me, that's full tracking. That's like the full VR experience. It's
Now,
not haptic boot suits to your brain or anything.
Yeah.
So
The question I
end?
have though, one second, Chachi, for Red, is do you think CIG will have that support where you're literally kneeling down, picking up Chris's coffee cup that he left in the forest 5 days ago?
Good
Or
reference.
or are we or
On a
are we
crater,
looking
yeah.
at, or are we just looking at like the basic sort of because I'm not familiar with how detailed some VR games can get, or even VR ports. Is it not uncommon to
The
get those full
ports.
knuckle stuff, or is it?
So
just,
ports, sorry.
go ahead.
Sorry, ports is probably the closer analogy we're using. Even though, as you said, there's a lot of groundwork being laid by Sylvan and many other great developers to make sure it's ready for VR, and a lot of work that's been in the background. But the main premise is having it's more of a walk, crawl, run method. Crawl, walk, run.
Mhm.
Where right now we're in that crawl stage where you can look around with HMD, you can natively boot into the HMD. There's wireless streaming to the device. They're going to have to figure out how to stream to the frame. Dev kits are going out for the Steam frame. We'll go into that, I think, later if we have time.
Yeah.
If Paul
Oh yeah,
wants
we
to go into
will.
that, but ideally, all the major HMDs are covered, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. But the point is that you need to have the HMDs covered. Then you start working about inputs with controllers and other things, and then that final run stage is full body tracking. And I do believe we'll get there. It's just a
So
question of how far out.
Okay, go ahead, Chachi.
I was
Same question for you
yeah,
for
yeah.
that
No,
one.
you're
So,
good.
just like,
I was
what
gonna
is
point
full
out
body tracking, and like, do you think CIG will do that soon?
so with full body tracking, this goes back to that, you don't need a full skeletal mocap rigging for every character in the game in an to make an MMO, but you do need that to make full body tracking, to have your joints actually, your elbow be actually trackable in game. When you reach out and put a tracker on that, your character's elbow is in that same spot, your character's knee is in that same spot. It's the same stuff that gives them the amazing cinematic quality for immersion on their NPC animations and in Squadron 42 as well. That whole mocapping studio uses that same rigging technology that VR players will eventually tap into dynamically with trackers. If you're talking about full tracking, that's like okay, one, I didn't think we'd get VR this soon. I think it'd be a post 1.0 launch update. I didn't think we'd get it for Squadron 42 on launch date. So me saying post 1.0 update for full body tracking, that's still on me thinking on that schedule. Maybe we'll get it sooner than I think. But the soonest thing that we get next, I think, is this touch controller, reaching out and grabbing props. Now, I hope that they make all of the inanimate objects on shelves less inanimate to facilitate VR players' grabby hands, but I know that's like a static meshing environment issue and not a physicalized, thing like boxes and guns and all the other items in the universe. Because the set dressing in Star Citizen is wild if
Yeah.
you get up close on it in VR.
Lots of details. I mean, some of these
There's
textures are
little
not just
tool bags like left on the in like the bunkers and stuff like that someone was doing maintenance, and Like, it's so cool. Just so many little props and stuff.
The labels of the various like drinks and like canisters you can actually read if you get close enough. Like they
So
have full
with
text.
you probably still have like a heavy screen door affecting on your CV1, but with the 4K per eye Pimax, I'm going up to those magazines in what do you call it? Area 18 and like
the Terra Gazette or whatever.
Yeah, and like the ones that are like the open books and stuff, I'm sitting there just like reading like the text perfectly, that really, really tiny stuff. And like barcodes and stuff, you could actually see like the individual lines on them. It's it's crazy. You could get so close to a bolt on like a flat surface that remember that one Inside Star Citizen episode where they showed like they have the textures that look 3D, but they're actually flat wrappings around 3D objects.
Yeah.
And that's like a dynamic system that helps the offload a lot of resources and stuff. Only until you get right on top of the bolt, you can tell that it's not actually 3D. The systems that they have is crazy. So, but yeah, as far as full motion controls, the rigging and all that stuff that you need for it is there. And what he was saying earlier is that yes, there are games that allow for, like, you know, if you want to flip the bird, the game has to allow for the Knuckles controller, right? Mm-hmm. But most VR developers are trying to sell as many VR games as possible. So they don't want to limit their game to only work on one type of headset, one type of controller. So most VR games actually don't have the capability to finger manipulate. And most of them is just like a quick grab with all of the fingers instead. Half-Life Alyx was built with the touch Knuckles in mind, and it has individual actual finger support. But if you play it with a lesser headset and lesser controllers, you still get like all four fingers that move at once, but you don't get individual digits moving. So that's the type of rigging that you need at the finger level. Star Citizen has done that at the body level.
Yeah.
So
for those who don't know, if I pull this out and I press this button right here, it will track it my hand as if I'm doing this. But if I hit, like, sometimes you hit this little trigger out here, you can do it. Sometimes it'll go from like this to this or this to this. Like it's basically like a finger or two fingers and a fist is basically what you can make with these sorts of simple controllers.
Yep. Now this, as great as this is, this has little lines on it where the sensor bar is, and that'll get sweat caught up in it, and it'll just permanently fully grip. So I have to play with white gloves on because I'm a sweaty boy. So every single, like, there's always a drawback somewhere to all of this because
I just wet my hand off my t-shirt between shooting around.
I used to have like a quarterback like Troy Aikman, like a towel dripped over my front when I was streaming so I could quickly wipe down. But yeah, like even though like we've come so far with VR, it still is kind of in its infancy, you know? Like we're still figuring out what is the best way to have a touch controller in interface. Do we go with the gloves? Have you seen that glove tech where they put like a tracker band on each finger and like the thing is on the back of the wrist and it like actually dynamically measures each movement of each finger? Like we're still figuring out how best to actually interface with VR because now you don't just have a mouse and keyboard or a controller. Now you got two hands. Now you got an actual camera that's looking with the head.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, then that's another thing that I noticed about Star Citizen is that you don't need dual axis or tri-axis aiming to make an FPS game. You absolutely need 1, 2, 3 axis of aiming to play a VR game. So being able to aim the camera and then aim the gun separately is paramount to a good VR.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that's important, I think, even in the experiences of like in a ship, because like in Squadron, it's a little bit easier since I think all of the, like every action you do is mapped to an animation. So there is a status where your switches are up or down. And I think even in Star Citizen, if you flip them, they will sometimes flip up or down, or like a button will press in and press out.
The gold standard ships have animated switches and dials. I've done seen it in VR. Yeah. You got to get up close to it, but yeah, some of them do move. It's pretty. And cockpits in VR are so wild. Oh, they've done such a good job. Like hands down, every single one has a unique feeling to it, even if it's like the series in the line. Because I did like this video series called Cockpit Compare, I need to actually redo it with 4K and all my new stuff. But I went through the Heart Seeker Mark 1, the C, the Mark 1A that I borrowed, a Mark 2C, a Mark 2A, and I compared all of their cockpits. Did you know the Heart Seeker has 6 MFDs? 6
No.
MFDs compared to the 2 for the Mark 2A. It's crazy.
But yeah, so like I believe I would almost 100% guarantee that they will get some form of motion tracking in before the end of the year in terms of utilizing the basic motion controls. Maybe not so super detailed, because it seems like we're really what we're lacking right now is the ability to pick up a gun. Because like the problem is that you pick up a gun in VR, you pick up say like a P4, right? In P4, I can push the P4 out with one hand in theory because it's the way it works and fire it. And in some games, there's just no recoil when you do that sort of thing in VR. So you're gonna have to CIG's gonna have to find a ways, and there are ways. I know what is it, Boneworks that does a lot of that sort of thing, where it's more detailed. So like there's actual like ways you can map it so it kind of moves your hand even if you're not moving your hand, so you can kind of see like, oh yeah, the recoil is really bad. But it will also be really funny to see people walking around in VR because you'll be able to see them walking around in VR because they'll probably like pick up a gun and be like, I've got a gun, and they can just wave it around in front of you.
The MMO universe will feel way more alive when like 5-10% of the population is waving around and moving their arms and walking. I can't wait to see that. And combine that with like, Oregon social tools and FOIP and VoIP and all that. Like, this place is going to be a living, breathing universe, like Chris says.
Think about how much of a pain it is to make an emote right now. And if you don't have the preloaded all set up on a game glass or something like that, right?
Versus... I got 1,000 emotes loaded up in VR already. I just got to do what I want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And by the way, there is a bit of a learning curve for some folks that aren't VR savvy. Chachi obviously knows his stuff, but some folks, if you're coming into VR, you've got to be mindful. People can see what you're doing with your hands. So, you put them near your nose or you start adjusting your headset constantly or whatnot.
Yeah.
People will see that
all the time. It feels like there's a bug up in it sometimes when I'm playing like an 8-hour session.
Yeah, so
you're there, whether you like it or not. You're there.
You will see people literally pull their hands up and go. And it's funny because you can actually see, this is a side tangent, but like you can see that there's that one famous is it Optimus robot from Tesla where they're doing remote operators. And so for those of you who don't know, when robots do remote operations, they use VR headsets to do remote operations. And so
one of my favorite things is the industrial applications for VR. Yeah, it's so cool.
It's been used in the military pretty extensively for FPV drones for 5 years now or so. So
I do drone flying on the side and stuff like that. Oh, it's so fun. And in fact, I know from one of the viewers on my stream, he works with an airline, and basically like they use headsets with eye tracking to train pilots. Right? It's one thing to tell a pilot like, all right, you're taking off, you look at this gauge, you push this dial, and you pull this lever, right? As a pilot, did you know if the student actually looked at that dial while he was pulling that lever and tracked the like with eye tracking, they can actually tell exactly where the student is looking, what dial, what instrument panel, what button they're pushing. And so they can give a lot more dedicated feedback and say, no, you're doing this wrong. And this is what you actually need to be, keeping track of and blah, blah, blah. So it's just one of the many, many, many things that you could do with VR besides just like 3D engineering, AutoCADing or monitoring, remote facilities or remoting into robots. So there's so many applications.
There's lots
you also
of
feel like you want to be there. Like I mentioned the Lancer Max, Star Lancer Max earlier. like the back that place with the pool table and the bar and everything, the crew air hangout, it is delightful place in VR. And then you go into 890 jump and you're like, ooh, this ain't so good. And but when eventually when they when they get a pass on that, I see like hanging out, spending time and let picking on different places, like heading over to Area 18 and hanging out at the G Lock bar or something will be much more appetizing, in VR because it's an experience.
That'll be like your VR chat experience in Star Citizen.
Exactly. It's the pug. The pug is
And-
coming to VR.
And one of the things that I can say that will differentiate, might be a side tangent here, but this is one of the things I really, really wanted to kind of get out, is that with Star Citizen, it doesn't end. Like, think about back to Oblivion. You're only ever able to like play around in that bowl shape of mountains. Same with Skyrim. You can't go over the mountain range or across the border. In FPS games, there's the skybox with, invisible walls you can't go through. Like, none of that applies to Star Citizen. You can go over every mountain. You can go visit every city, every inch of every city. Maybe not inside the buildings, but like it's all there physically one to one. There's no loading screens. Like, Star Citizen doesn't end. Every game ends. Somewhere, somehow, there's an imaginary border somewhere that gets in your way and breaks your immersion.
Mhm.
That immersion break is one of the not worst things, but just like when you're in VR, you're in the game until you hit an immersion break. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm standing in my living room playing in VR. With Star Citizen, I'll be 8, 10, 12 hours deep in a big, long VR stream session. And I'll be like, oh yeah, during the Daymar rally, one of my drivers, my co-driver, he started during the day and had his lights off in his house, right?
Mhm.
By the time he ended, it was nighttime, and he took off his headset and he was sitting in the dark.
I've done stuff like
That-
that before with VR.
That's how
Yeah.
immersed you are. And when a game like Star Citizen hits and you can't ever hit an ending to it and you just keep going and going, you are there in that universe. That's why I think that Star Citizen has the potential to be one of the greatest VR games of all time, because the pure sense of immersion is unparalleled and the pure sense of scale is unfathomable until you see it for yourself.
The one thing I will say, and this is true, is that sim sickness is a thing. Not everyone can get it done, but I have found that a lot of sim sickness can be overcome if you play. It's like immersion therapy. Like, you kind of have to like do it until you get there, and you can mess with some things. A lot of sim sickness is just low FPS. It's just like you've got super low FPS, and so
Having high quality equipment and a high FPS visual fidelity experience really, really helps with the not only immersion, but the anti-nausea factor.
Yeah.
And now, despite all of this, I will say there is still going to be that straight up, 1/5, 1/4 of the population that just put on a headset, their inner ear thinks that they're in a tumble dryer, and they're just, their brain thinks they're falling over. My mom and my cousin are like that. They literally, like, I can't even have them put on the headset and stand up straight. They're not even doing anything. They're just wobbling, trying to stand up. It's like they got vertigo or something. So there will always be a percentage of the population that just flat up cannot do it because of motion sickness, inner ear, brain imbalance issues.
Yeah.
But for everybody else that gets a little bit nauseous, just, take your time and get your VR legs. Like, the best thing I can say is if you got a wheel pedals or HOTAS, just do flight sims in a chair. Sitting down in a chair grounds you in VR. If you're grabbing a wheel like you would be IRL in a car and you're driving in VR, you know exactly what you're doing because you've done it IRL. You could probably, if you get motion sickness doing FPS stuff for like 5 minutes, you could probably drive around in a car in VR for 30. I'll put it that way. Sitting down doing cockpit stuff in VR, easy as pie.
If I could add to that,
Good, right?
When you're actually doing that, that's when it gets a little crazy. What's up, Red?
if I could add to that, the next stage after you get yourself your VR legs, up and not jump is the first I ever heard say that, by the way, years and years ago. But if I could, the next stage is what a lot of people miss out on. They get in that chair and they kind of just feel like, oh, I only do War Thunder on sim mode or something, or oh, I only do Microsoft Flight Sim or car racing. And it's like, that's
Expand your
cool.
horizons. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But the next stage is what it took me a little bit to figure out, especially because I started out on a Vive and the trying to keep that at a high frame rate to get it going and the screen door effect was a pain. But what I found helped me was I used a bar stool of all things, just a lowly wooden bar stool. And later on, I ended up finding a weighted bar stool that had a bottom to it that was weighted and it could move. It was like designed for exercise or something. It looked goofy, but it was adjustable and it kept me in that grounded state the same way. I could lean up against it as a crutch whenever I started getting a little out there. And
Interesting.
for me, that worked great, especially when I got into VR chat. I started doing world building with other folks and learning and building my own worlds. And I went into theirs or mine, and it was highly experimental. And you're falling through the ground constantly. You're constantly finding things that are breaking or changing your experience. And I was able to just lean back, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. And then I kept going, and then I kept going longer and longer, and for hours and hours. And I was like, okay, I'm doing great now. You know, like
So I don't know about you, Red, but I can handle like I stream VR all the time, but that's sitting down in a chair playing a sit down game. When I do stand up, like, room scale VR stuff, my max limit is 4 hours, maybe 6 if I push it. And then because I'm pivoting in a circle constantly, trying to keep my can't because I'm streaming, I'm keeping facing forward with the camera and stuff like that. And I'm just pivoting on the balls of my feet. I don't have a motion treadmill, I don't have walkable floor type situation. And I got 4 hours of VR walking time before my ankles and my calves are just killing me. So your idea with the little sit down rolly chair, the little bar stool, like that's actually not a bad idea to be
no,
able
not at
to
all. The
get a
bars
little
and
in between
the
and be
bottom
able
of
to
it
just.
looks like an exercise ball. It's the best description I can offer. It's weighted,
I
and I
kind of
still
think I
have it.
know what
I
you're
still
talking
use
about.
it
I've
once in a
seen
while.
something like that, but yeah, just having like a bit of resistance on it, like because so
Yeah, and it
it's
doesn't fall over. Even though you
yep.
can't see it, it never falls over because it's weighted on the bottom, and that works really well for me. I play What's in the Box on VR chat, and that can take hours and hours because like you got to wait for your whole team to assemble. It could take an hour and a half to 2 hours
and
to run the whole thing.
and
Then you're hanging out with everybody in the after party.
that's the thing too is that like I'll get to that 4 hour limit and into the radius and I'll be like I want to do another mission but like I just can't because my calves just hurt. So yeah, having a little sit down that you could roll around in for that room scale experience is a good idea. Solid stuff there.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned one other thing I'll mention. It's totally okay if you just want to sit all the time. That's perfectly okay. No,
Oh yeah,
like we're
yeah,
not downing on you.
it's you pick your own poison for VR. How immersed do you want to be?
Yeah,
If
and I for Vision Pro, when I'm just watching movies or I'm doing work, like sometimes I'll do some content creation and other stuff off there. I'm mostly in a recliner, and my cat loves it. She thinks it's the greatest thing ever because she just jumps on my lap and she's like, it's free real estate while I'm getting work done. And I have like a huge screen in front of me. I've got my movies streaming above or my YouTube going, and I'm having a great time doing editing right from there with a keyboard and mouse wirelessly. Everything's wireless. It's flipping wonderful. But that's all in a recliner, and I can do that all day. Heck, I do it most nights of the week when I get home from real work.
All right, let's move forward because there's two things I want to ask you. We'll talk about Squad 42 next, and then I want to ask about like suggestions for people for peripherals because Ghost is in chat, or was it Ghost or was it no? It's Nightcob. Nightcob's in chat, and Nightcob and has said this that don't spend your money on don't spend your money um, on ships. Spend money on peripherals. You will have a better experience. And one of those peripherals is VR.
buy ships in game, get HOTAS IRL. Definitely.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about VR, HOTAS in VR is a complete game changer.
But we'll talk a
Okay,
little bit
so,
about.
yeah.
We'll get to that after we talk about Squadron because I want to what should people get who are interested in VR? What are some of the specs that people need to pay attention to, and what's a good introduction set? And we'll talk a little bit about, of course, the scene frame and it's possible what it could possibly mean for the game as well. So let's start off with Squadron 42. Chris said full VR support for Squadron 42. Chachi, What do you think that means? And do you think it's possible, considering Squadron 42 is coming out at the end of this year?
All right, whole bunch of things were all roll into one. If they CIG, the world, if they want Squadron 42 to have any significant impact, hands down, it has to drop before Grand Theft Auto.
Yes.
Like if they want streamers to check it out, if they want people to make content on it, if Grand Theft Auto exists and is out, then streamers are losing money if they are not playing that game. That's how big of an impact Grand Theft Auto will have. So first and foremost, it has to drop before Grand Theft Auto. And slated for November, October, that puts it right at IAE CitizenCon. So
if it's not delayed again.
If it's not, with GTA Studio Fire and them firing devs, I think it's going to be like a January, February release. But they say November, so we have to play by their words. So first and foremost, that has to be out. Second of all, if they want to steal even more thunder, like having VR support for Squadron 42, like that's just the craziest thing. Even I'm the VR citizen, I didn't even think that they would go that far for launch day support. Everybody in my community has been like, yeah, no, 1.0, like a patch after 1.0, I'll be fine. I'll get to play it twice, right? I have to make a decision now. Am I going to play it through in VR with my rig? Like, like this is a hard, tough choice because I want to see the game, but at the same time, I definitely want to play through it in VR. So I literally have a tough choices. I mean, I'm going to play it in VR, but like, I really want to play it at the desktop. So the fact that it's going to drop with actual support is going to steal a lot of thunder, a lot more than it just dropping in general, in my opinion. But I might be a little biased. I might have a couple of VR headsets on my shelf. So who's to say that,
do you think it's possible? Do you think it's possible that we're going to get a full support?
Here's what I think. I think we are testing Squadron 42's VR support now.
Okay.
Which is why we have it in our hands in such a state, which is why we are getting it in the way it is without HUD working. They need to see they're
collecting
86 different headsets on the modern market. I have a roles section on my Discord, and when you join the Discord, you can pick which headsets you own. That way we can ping each other for troubleshooting and help and stuff like that. I have over 80, almost 90 headsets on that list across 6 different vendors, each with their own runtime, their own VR support, software, each with their own thing that they have that interacts with native OpenXR support differently. All of that they can't, leave to closed in-office systems with the few headsets that they have laying around. They have to get that out into the wider hands of all the people that own headsets and test and make sure that it's actually working, And I think that now that the big waves, I think that they were testing, like dropped in experimental VR to let us test for, post 1.0 launch. But I think that after they saw the numbers and how big of a waves and ripples that VR made for Star Citizen, I think they are going to push to get it out for launch day because it'll be that much more impactful. So, like, as you said, like there are people who never even cared about Star Citizen that are big VR fans. All of a sudden, a lot of people who never talked about Star Citizen are talking about Star Citizen just because it has VR. So now whether that's a huge market share, I can't tell you, but I know a lot of people are talking about it. So.
Okay. Red Jane, your thoughts. Squadron. Is it what is full's VR support thing? Do you think that means for Squadron?
Oh,
is it
possible? Sorry, I also forgot to ask what full VR support. I don't know if they'll get like
you said the current implementation. You think this will likely see?
Do you consider a touch control to grab the gun full VR support, or do we have VR support? I think that it's having the gun and doing this and Moby glassing with this. I think that's going to be full 1.0.
Yeah.
Like
I think like
anything
what you
more
could
than
do,
that is going to be a bit insane.
What you could do with basic Fallout VR implementation, but hopefully not garbage. Yeah,
hopefully not like floating hands and actual elbow you could see
and working.
I mean, we know that you can already see your whole body, so that's way better than Fallout is. So again, full character rigging. So
I'll kind of lead in with this. I believe they will have full VR in the sense of you can grab things, or at least they'll attempt to have that implemented and dragged in
Mhm.
on launch. I will also say that I can't ignore the fact that the Steam Frame is being launched very soon, if it doesn't get delayed again.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
it comes with a PC streaming dongle with it directly. So it's a plug and play, as Valve loves to call frictionless type gameplay. And based on how we saw ALVR implementation and now Pimax, we'll get to that later, but the different implementations that they've been very welcoming with for the PU, I think Squadron 42 absolutely will have those implementations. I agree with Chachi that they were testing at least some of that capability for Squadron 42 to make sure on launch day it works effortlessly. And I'll add one more thing. Most of the time, VR users are absolutely used to having to pay twice, like Fallout 4 VR, Skyrim VR, and they shouldn't have to.
Any
And
Quest 3 game that you owned on Steam VR and that you had to buy again on your Quest
exactly.
3 headset.
We're so used to getting kicked in the head when it comes to these things. Excuse
Ugh.
the expression, but it just feels like you get punched down on because you're VR. This right here, if CIG can come to the VR community and say, "We're going to give you this game. You can run it on PC. You can run it on VR. You're going to have a great time, and at no extra cost." That's a huge, huge, huge value add for so many backers. And people that are on the fence can go, I'm not going to pick up a Frame or a Pimax or a Quest 55 or whatever number they're up to this minute. But, when I can, hey, it's already in there. So I'll have something to play. Like, I mean, that's such a value add to me for a lot of people, I think.
I'm with you on that. I do think that it is going to be basic support for the touch controllers. I think that's what they mean by full support. And
They,
a lot
they
of
have the button like flip switchy interaction system, and that's just begging for VR touch controllers.
Yeah.
So yeah, if
Yeah,
they can get that, yeah.
and that's just animation. So, but the fact that it's all physical means that you could literally reach out, grab,
You
and pull open a
just
hatch
tap into it. Yep.
and then wrap it. It's just a matter of like getting that, because they've got that grabby hands where you kind of grab the for like VR for 0G.
It's
Where you
the
grab, like, the
dynamic
location.
animation system.
Yeah, that kind of works.
It
So-
doesn't need mocapping. It just, there's a button, you reach out and do the button. There's a lever, you reach out and pull the lever dynamically
Pulling the
without
ejection seat
requiring
or
animation
something like
tech
that.
and stuff. So
Yeah, it doesn't require super, because they already have the bones mapped for the arms and everything like that, and they have that sort of thing. So like, and I really want to emphasize this: is watch Squadron 42 trailers. Don't like watch the whole like Squad 42 like gameplay. You just watch the trailers from the last couple of years of what they've released. You'll see like there's just like lifting this lever, moving this object, hitting this switch when you like start up your ship.
it looks like a lot of Half-Life physics puzzles are going to be throughout the single player game, which
Yeah.
I'm all for. I love it.
So a lot of the stuff is fairly basic and already has animation canned. So there's already physical states between open and close for certain. So these things are up and down switches. So that seems to be a lot of the work done for like physicalizing the universe is already there. So it's just a matter of not so simple, but it's simpler than having to remap everything like you would with like a Fallout 4, Skyrim, and that kind of stuff.
So this kind of brings me to kind of a side point, is that Squadron 42 will be the first. Again, what's the like cross console? What's the term? Like VR and PC playable AAA, debatably quadruple A game, right? That is playable as the same exact experience between desktop and VR. And one of the things that I've been saying for a long time is that Valve is gonna drop the Steam Frame, the new Steam machine, have new VR headset, and of course they're gonna have some sort of Half-Life game, right? They can't release Half-Life 3 as a VR only product. The entire world would riot and everybody would burn everything down if only 5% of the market got to play the new Half-Life 3 game, right?
Yeah.
It has to be able to be a desktop game and a VR game. Half-Life Alyx is not a desktop game because there are actual physics puzzles that you have to have touch controllers to interact with. But Star Citizen will have desktop-like interactions that will work in VR. And that's going to be the difference. If they do that, then Valve has no excuse not to release a Half-Life 3 game that is at the same type of level and parity between PC, desktop experience, and VR. So, just my little 2 cents on all that.
Yeah, no, I
can't think of any game. I guess, technically Star Trek and a couple other things that have PC, VR cross-play type situation.
Ironically, it's a lot of science fiction games, because I think that's also the case with oh gosh, what was it? It's similar to Bridge Crew, which is Pulsar, which was before Bridge Crew. It's very similar in terms of it, but it's also support.
I mean, technically Elite, but in Elite Dangerous, FPS in VR is done in theater mode, so I don't count.
It's you're watching a screen to do FPS rather than.
Elite Dangerous is still, to this day, if I pretend that the FPS update doesn't exist, Elite Dangerous is still one of the best, if not the best, VR game of all time. It is so good. Like, if you've ever played Elite, you have that right and left menu in your cockpit.
Yeah,
and I guess if you're on a if you're on a controller, it's a right bumper or left bumper. In VR, you just look at that menu and it pops up.
Yeah,
it just look there and it pops up, and that was just like the fact that the menus in the game worked in VR perfectly for your experience. Like when I did that, that's like what, 2013, 2012 when it was on the original Oculus dev kits. Yeah. It was so good. So yeah. Someone's saying, No Man's Sky. See, I can't get into No Man's Sky because I tried to play it like Star Citizen, and it doesn't actually have HOTAS support. It's a console PS2 VR game. I had a very bad time trying to play it the way I played it. I should have just played it at the desktop first and then enjoyed it in VR with a controller and not try to force it like I did.
I think a lot of people misunderstand No Man's Sky, because I think it's easier to go from No Man's Sky to Star Citizen than Star Citizen to No Man's Sky, because Star Citizen is like a space sim.
Yes.
So if you try to play No Man's Sky like a space sim, it doesn't work. No Man's Sky is
very
arcadey. It's a survival game. It's a survival game with space in it and space elements. So if you're used to games like Minecraft or Ark, it's sort of in that vein, because you can like manipulate the environment and everything. But it's a lot harder to go from Star Citizen, where you're like, oh yeah, I've got to like slow down, turn off this, I've got to turn on these power settings, I've got to land, and
don't forget coupled mode.
Yeah, versus just boost into the atmosphere and then hit a button and you automatically land. It feels almost like simplistic, which is important. It's the whole point. It's not its focus.
Everybody can play it. That's the thing. Everybody, your grandma can play No Man's Sky. As I say, this is Granny Q, hopped into my mobile VR cockpit rig in the last Citizen Con at Austin.
Yeah.
So grannies can play Star Citizen in VR, have video footage of that, but that's not the point. That's not the point. Any grandma can easily pick up No Man's Sky and play it. Yeah. That would not be the case with Star Citizen, unless you're Granny Q. Shout out to her. She's amazing.
She is amazing.
She's great.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Rodri.
Jump Space. And I think they had to change the name for some reason.
Jump Ship now. It's Jump Ship.
Jump Ship now.
Yeah.
Jump Ship.
That game is phenomenal for group play, multi-crew group play. And I hope that you mentioned arcadey. That's its problem, is that it's arcadey. But it's a good, fun beer and peanuts game.
Oh, yeah.
If we can get a hint of that with VR in Star Citizen, suddenly people will want to cruise ships a lot more. I'm not saying everybody. I'm sure there's going to be somebody right away in the comments on the Twitch or YouTube saying, I'll never crew somebody else's ship. Yeah, but when you're in VR, walking around a ship is a cool experience, and doing things on a ship is a really cool experience. And
walking around in an actual ship that exists one-to-one, because you get into a helicopter in Battlefield. You just hop into the seat. There's no game has walking around in a vehicle, Like it's just
very
such a unique thing
that are not basically you play in that vehicle and that's it. Yeah. Like it's not that the scale is off, but it's different for Star Citizen. But I will say one of the things that's I was playing VR before this, and I legitimately had a jump scare because I was focusing on trying to get a ship, and an NPC walked in, and I literally turned to look at the NPC as if that was a person walking towards me. I literally went, oh, Like someone's trying to get in front of me. I'm about to get run into. And so my brain immediately went into someone's gonna bump into you, and then it was like, oh wait, it's an NPC. It's a Star Citizen. Shit. Like my brain was tricked in with the VR because of what I was seeing. And that's common.
What VR does.
Yeah, that's common. That's happened before other games. Go ahead, Red. Sorry.
One of the most amazing experiences, and it's one of those experiences you chase in gaming. VR chat, went to an event. A friend of mine I knew for a few months before that, and I didn't really get too heavy in VR. I was using flat screen for a while, and then I jumped in VR chat in VR, and they ran up to me at an event and hugged me, and it was like the most like crazy experience, like to be able to feel some type of emotion, like, oh, this is a good friend. And it's like, that's great, like that type of experience. And even the smallest things. There's a game called, I think it was Squad, one of the shooters, all the VR shooters. I hate to say it, but they kind of melt together except for Pavlov. But
Yeah, I know what you mean. They really do.
Squad, like being able to like see your squad mate take a position, and like you can see them ducking the bullets, like trying to tuck in as tight as possible up to a door frame, and you're desperately trying to get to them to save them from the two people up the staircase. Like those type of experiences, you feel them. It's not, I'm just wasting words right now. Until you experience it, you can't convey it.
I'll have my mobile VR cockpit with full 4K Pimax and a supercomputer to run it at the June Bar Citizen in Austin, Texas. If you're wanting to check out Star Citizen in VR,
please take them up on
Citizen Con if it's in the US. Wherever it is, I'm going to try to get the rig there.
Yeah, because that's coming to Star Citizen. Very exciting.
I will also say with Squadron Warrior 2, I do think that what you were talking about with like the cross play, it's not really cross play. Someone said cross. There's a good one that people said. Cross display. Cross display is a good word for it. A cross display game. I do think that Star Citizen or Squadron Warrior 2 can stand out because of that. And that's one of the things that can make or break a game, in my experience, is what does this game do? Because a lot of games are like, oh yeah, it's just a copy of this other game that exists. It's just in a different style, so you can just play the game again, but now it's set in medieval period, or it's in space, but it's like the same game. Like there's a lot of copies of like RimWorld and that sort of thing, and it's like, okay, but you can't really beat the original RimWorld. Squadron Warrior 2, and its origin, like it's being kind of a Wing Commander clone, but it's kind of like, I can see it getting compared to Mass Effect and sort of things. But the fact that it will have native VR support along with it, I do think that will change the conversation, because it'll go from being, oh yeah, it's Mass Effect, but like in the future it's like slightly more futuristic, or like an updated version of Mass Effect or updated version of Ring Commander, to being, it is its own genre, it's its own thing now. Single player space game, and it may even be the thing that people judge that immersion by for other games in the series.
Like you're not playing it until you're in VR type of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And even if people don't play it in VR, that alone will get the attention. Before we were talking about this, and I said it's kind of like how Crisis basically set the bar for everyone. Everyone's like, yeah, but can it run Crisis, as that joke? But like, even now, looking back at Crisis's like foliage demos, is insane for a game that came out in like 2004, like 20 years ago.
I always call it's probably called something else, but I call it a crisis moment in video games, and it's done in movies and TV and stuff. It's pretty sure it's a specific directorial thing, but remember in the very opening mission when you cross that hill and the sun finally rises and you're looking down into that bay? I call it a crisis moment. Every game, once they're done with the tutorial, it's like, all right, now it's time to show you the world. And they call it that crisis moment of crossing over the hill. Everybody calls it the Star Citizen moment when you first land on a moon and get out of your ship. But in my head, it's still the same thing. That door, the ramp opens and the sun just slowly setting down, and you're walking out onto a landscape of an open moon. And it's I get that exact same crisis moment feels from that type of thing.
Yeah.
So
I can do that. Apparently it was released in 2007, but still it's a 19-year-old game.
Gosh.
And that game
What graphics
still,
card was I running? What was I not able to run then?
but that game to this day, that game's like foliage and lighting is almost industry standard, or not industry standard, but like the highest praise.
It
I've
set the
never
bar,
seen.
for sure.
I have never seen foliage as well simulated as Crysis. And if CIG can get close to that with Squadron and Star Citizen, I do think with VR, and I want people to understand that I'm not saying like it's going to be an amazing game no matter what. I'm saying like you add these things into the pile, they begin to smush together as the story or as the actual perception of the game, and that perception then makes the game seem like, oh, I can put it in a box. I like to say like people like to put things in boxes because we're so
It's its own box now. Yeah.
it's now its own box, and if you can put it in its own box, that means you can remember it. And if you remember it, you're more likely to tell your friends about it, or play it yourself, or go, "Oh yeah, that game! I heard about that game that has all these that sort of thing." So,
I will say, if anybody out there has a headset right now and they haven't done so, either go to Forest's Tundra on Microtech, Good Hollow, or what is that Hollow place?
Ghost Hollow.
Ghost Hollow, yeah. Just fly near the tundra area in the equator. Go into the land on a mountain, go down to the forest, and just check out the trees and stuff. If you can't do that, spawn at Orison. Go down to the hotel and look at the cherry blossoms that are flying around, falling off the trees, blowing in the wind in swirls, in full 3D with VR. It's literally like you're a Disney princess in a little, movie where everything's just dancing
Jack the
around
music
you.
up.
You're in this the hottest new anime, romance anime from
Exactly.
29 50 56. Um, okay, let's talk about hardware. We've talked about the game. We talked about this. If people are
The
like,
unfortunate
"You sold
ugly
me,"
head.
if you've sold me, what should I get? Let's talk about a basic version. Somebody who has can run Star Citizen decently. What sort of headset should they get to experience the game in a good way?
So I'll take the lead if you don't mind, Red J,
Go for
Good.
on this. So the keys to the VR kingdom is VRAM. Like how much you want to push resolution wise is directly correlated with how much gigabytes of open VRAM that you have to run that resolution. My 5090 water cooled is topping out at 95% usage on my Pimax 4K, 4K, twin 4K, one for each eye display, head mounted display, right? That's two 4K monitors that are running simultaneously, plus the game feed on your desktop, right? You need VRAM overhead to even be able to actually approach those type of numbers. Now, that's at the highest end of the scale. When we're talking about, your average VR player, they mostly are able to play every VR game pretty easily because every VR game is built to run on a potato, because high FPS and immersion is the biggest factor for making people not sick and throw up. And the last thing you want to do is drop a VR game that makes everybody throw up and be, hey, yeah, that's that really shitty VR game that makes everybody throw up. So having a really, really, really smooth, good experience for VR games is tantamount. That's not what Star Citizen is supposed to do. So having said that, now we got all of that out of the way. Whatever you're trying to push resolution-wise is what you need to plan to have or buy VR-wise. Or graphics card-wise. If you're thinking and wanting and have the money for a Pimax, then you're going to hope to have a Pimax money for a GPU that could power a Pimax. Okay. Something along the lines like a Quest 3 will run perfectly on a 1080 Ti, right? It just all depends on what you want to push. So I will say that that is going to be the most thing that you need to realize if you're out shopping and buying. If you have a current headset and are looking to upgrade, maybe think about, getting a GPU before you have to sell somebody else's kidneys. If you're fine with your headset that you have, or, the GPU, you got a good GPU and you're thinking about, what headset you can push, just VRAM is definitely the key for the higher end stuff. But that said, a Steam frame probably will run fine, I would say, on a modern day 16 gigabyte card. Okay. Whatever you can, maybe within a year, a generation or two off, but 16 gigabytes I would say for 2K, headset for 2K resolution VR, like a 16 gigabyte, 20 gigabyte is where you're wanting to start at. And my 5090 is like 32 gigabytes or something. It's insane just how much it needs. And now this is brute forcing it in tier 0 in an alpha MMO, right? That doesn't have foveated rendering, that doesn't have quad views, that doesn't have the DLSS AI super sampling that'll be out in a year from now when Squadron 42 is, right? All of those things will drop the overhead combined with efficiency and making the engine run better. That's Sylvan's job on the engine team, is getting that what do you call it, performance, to where Star Citizen and Squadron 42 runs a lot better on more and more machines. So once those are added into the equation, then the barrier to entry drops down significantly. But right now, especially if we're talking on the super high end, it's super high end, So, which is again why I love to be able to take out my mobile cockpit that has the 4K VR, that has the $7,000 computer, that has everything that can run it, to show people exactly how good it can be. So, and I'm happy to do that for y'all.
So generally, what you're saying is the what's really bottlenecked is your graphics card. So like whatever your resolution you're playing Star Citizen in, it has to be able, your headset has to be similarly supported. Could you say you're playing it in 1440? Are there like headsets that you could do with, if you normally play in 1440, that you could play?
So if you're
some, like that 2K resolution, whatever they like to call it.
So, I was about to say, that'd be basically around like your Index on the low side and then Quest 3 on the higher side. As far as in between, you see CV1 is like 1080p, right?
Yeah.
And then you got your Quest series slightly going up that, and then Index starts the bench, I'd say at 1440, with Quest 3 going up to 2K, and then straight up 4K and 8K, is the Pimax level stuff. So you could get away with quite a lot on an Index and Quest 3. Probably you're looking Index, you could get away with like probably 1080 Ti, but like a Quest 3, you're probably going to want like a 2080 Ti minimum, right? And again, any modern, like, probably throw an AMD 16 or 20 gigabyte card at it, and those will run around it pretty easily. It's only when you're really trying to push like 2K, 4K when it gets nasty. Because again, like, think about how much performance you're getting right now on a 4K monitor with Star Citizen. Okay, now run it twice on 2 4K monitors.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like when you're doing it, like you're doubling.
Just double it. Basically. It's not like a true good point, but it's a good rule of thumb, I'd say. So.
Okay. So what you're saying is like the Index 3 would be someone's like, or not the Index, or the Quest 3, probably Steam Frame or the
yeah, Steam Frame or Quest 3 is going to be, because the Steam Frame is about only a little bit better, if not the same-ish resolution as a Quest 3. It's just going to have, all the modern bells and whistles and stuff, and actually work on your computer instead of it not working on your computer like a Meta headset.
Yeah.
So I swear, man, if Meta had just invested into making their headsets connect to a computer, there would literally be zero market for a Valve frame, a Steam Frame headset.
I feel like they could
only reason the Steam
make
Frame
it cheaper.
Well, cheaper is one thing, but like if Facebook and Meta had just made their software connect to a computer and did not force you to buy their games again on the Meta headset, and just actually made it an inclusive environment for PC VR players, there'd be no market for the Steam VR, because the Steam VR does everything that I just said that the Meta doesn't do right now.
Yeah.
If they just made the Quest 3 work on a PC, the Steam Frame wouldn't be needed. But they refuse to do it, and now they're going to literally shoot themselves in the foot, because they have, who's going to buy Quest anything when Valve makes a headset that does all of it, and it works with Valve Steam, right? Which is the one thing that Meta refuses to do. So anyway,
I think I could offer a little bit different perspective, because I do agree with you. On the high end, I can't speak for that. Pimax hasn't like airdropped me a free headset or something. Pimax, if you want, I'll gladly review it.
They've been watching me. They've been watching me. They reached out to me and asked me, of all people, that they said they may be able to give me a demo version of one of their
So-
headsets to play.
Yeah, but
but like it's a demo version. It's not a free one. I'm not getting a free Pimax headset. That's
Yeah.
like a
yeah,
So,
no
like,
free rides. I
um,
know,
yeah.
but
They sent me the Pimax Super, and I had a 3080. Not even a 3080 Ti. A 3080 is 10 gigabytes of VRAM.
Mhm.
A 3080 Ti is 12, right? And I was basically not able to run it. And they were so nice to me that they sent me a Crystal Light so that I could get up and running and make content and stuff while I was getting the supercomputer all sorted and whatnot. So that I could run the super, so that I could take it to events and show everybody, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
That's pretty
the
cool,
high
man.
end fell into my lap. I always wanted to afford the high end, but I definitely, you know, was one of the people on the outside looking in until very recently. So I'm glad that I'm able to share my newfound expertise in this area.
So yeah, and that's very cool of them. A lot of these manufacturers, I think, I'm more the mid ranger. So I have a 4070 Ti on my main rig. It has 12 gigs of VRAM. And experimentally, I've tried out my Apple Studio has an insane amount of unified memory. I mainly do AI kind of gimmicks on there, screwing around, but it's not very good only because things don't want to run on metal, which is their graphics kind of nonsense. So I'll stick to the 4070 Ti topic.
Metal
Yeah, it's like their transition thing. It's a long story.
API layer.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. But the they're not on Godot just yet. They're working on it.
Mm.
But
Metal.
so so the point is that I have a 4070 Ti and I run an Index on there. Before that, I ran a 2080 for my Vive for years and years, and Index to a certain extent. And my point is that I also ran a Vision Pro with ALVR, directly streaming, full beautiful resolution. I got away with that because of DLSS, and I'm okay with it be having slightly DLSS thingy type things. But the point is that if I can offer for people who are terrified of what he just heard, like, oh well, I have to mortgage my house and get a 5090. It's like, look, like it's okay if you have a mid-range graphics card. It's not okay if you're trying to get by on a 1080, but you'll be okay with a mid-range graphics card if you're in a mid-range. So your frames that's what it's made for. It's made for you and me. It's not made for the supercomputer, and that's great that exists. I love that we're always scratching to the clouds, you know, as we're going as high as we can. I love that. But the frame is made for the mid-ranger, and that's what I would be looking at hard right now. And the only thing I can't recommend it or not recommend it is frustratingly because they won't say a price point because they're hoping the RAM price goes down. That's why they keep delaying it.
See, that's the thing, man. Everybody was talking about like a possible $700, $800 headset from Valve, and I'm just like, with RAM and prices, like even M.2 8 terabyte SSD, right? That has spiked from like $500, $600. That was $1,600 when I was looking on Camel. Now hard drives are being hit.
Yeah.
So if they had any hopes of bringing out a less than $1,000 headset to the market, I think it's gone.
And
I
they're
think
price anchored at that point if they send it out.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, I misspoke earlier. I said like a Quest 3 and a Valve Index will be good on a 1080 Ti. I meant a 3080 Ti. 3080, 3000 series and up for your Quest 3 and Index. Your 1080 Ti works on what Paul's got in his hands, the Oculus CV1. That's
my
the
point is
1080
this.
Ti card.
The reason why I have this up here is to make sure that this works. This works.
And that's the thing.
And you get
It's
a good
only
experience with
from
it.
there.
You know,
Yeah.
It's just not, you're not going to get a very high definition because it's really each eye is like 600 by 300 or something like that. It's slightly less than a 720 resolution, so it's not going to look great on modern setups. But
someone has a saying about pizza that I apply to VR. Any pizza is good pizza. You're getting pizza.
Yeah.
Any VR is good VR. You're getting VR, man. It's the most incredible immersion, brain-breaking thing you've ever done. To look behind you and the game still be there, like physically turn your head.
Yeah.
And the game still exists all around you at all times.
And Let me see if I can find the
Any
price of
VR
these
is
ones.
good VR.
These
And
ones are
you're
just
not
cheap.
you're not wasting your money. This is not a
Exactly.
Dreamcast
It only gets
situation.
better from there if you choose to upgrade. Just I'm
Right.
letting you know what it costs to upgrade right now with the current, market, the current headsets at the very, very top end on a game that's pushing the limits. When Star Citizen pushes to the limits, so of course, it's going to do the same with the limits of VR as well.
I wouldn't look at anything in the meta market right now. And
Uh,
I have bias against them, but anybody who's just looking right now and you're like scratching your head about what we keep going on about, look hard at the frame when it finally comes out and judge it by its price point and fairness, and consider if you want something that can run some programs and some extra
Man,
windows
even if
on
it's like 600
premise on
versus
game.
$1,000, I'd still say go over the frame. The headaches
There's
from using a meta on your PC is just
yeah,
too much.
and
If
there's
you
a
want a good experience and meta software, well, okay, so this is the whole point about what we're talking about. For those that aren't aware, is to run a VR headset, you have to run the software VR runtime. With Steam headsets, it's Steam VR. Very simple. With Meta headsets, Pimax has Pimax Play. There's stuff for
OpenXR
Vive.
recently. Pimax
Yep.
now has full support in SC.
So yeah, so the Meta software basically is the bastard stepchild of the Meta group because they could care less about VR hooking up to your computer. They want you to be on the Meta Quest itself, not playing on your computer. They want you to use the Meta OS. They want you to sign into Facebook. They want you to buy the games on the Meta Store, right? They want a full closed garden Apple iPhone system for a VR experience through Facebook. They do not care about playing your VR games on your computer. And if you are hitching your wagon to Squadron 42 in VR to that experience, you're going to be in for some pain. There's literally an entire $20 market for buying third-party software that hooks your headset up to your computer for Meta. It's so bad that everybody, 9 out of 10 people say, go buy virtual desktop for $20 and then just get it to hook up instantly. Do not bother with the software. That's how bad playing Meta on a computer is. Does it work perfectly for some people? Yes, but it's a survivor bias thing. Those people do not know the pains. I have 4 computers laying around me. Not one of them worked perfectly instantly with this Quest 3 that I have right here. Not one. Okay.
There's one other thing about hardware. Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
I will say this one thing because I just looked it up. You can get these on eBay because they don't sell them new anymore. They sell this and the Fs, the Rift S, which was the second one after this one, which are basically I think the same one, but it's slightly different. Which they do like physically connect to your computer. For between if you want a full inbox, $500, and you can get them as cheap as like $80 to $100 for these. If you're like, hey, I want to see, I've got an older thing. I've got like a 1080 or I've got a 2070. Can I want to check out what this is like. You can get this and do this and play it for less than for like $100. Now you do have to go through like eBay, which is not always trustworthy, but generally speaking, like you can get these in pretty good condition for pretty cheap. And this is a 5-year-old headset. So
if you can pull a used headset for cheap to just try it out, and then you'll know if you want to invest more into VR, into a good actual setup for it. So,
this is a 9-year-old headset.
I was about to say 5. Hold on now. Pump your brakes. 5.
Yeah. I got it 9 years ago. So
hang on. GQBot or GQBud cubed. I'm confused. I run Meta League software and can just use my Quest 2 and Steam VR and Star Citizen with 0 challenge. That's what I was saying. There are plenty of people out there who it works. The Meta software works completely fine. But again, that's a survivor bias thing. You don't realize how bad it is for everybody else. And I have so many people comes like, oh, what are you talking about? It works fine for me. It's like, yeah, but not for, if it worked fine for everybody, there wouldn't be a $20 market for virtual desktop. That's all I'm saying. That market wouldn't exist if it worked so good.
So if you're not buying used and you don't already have a Quest 3 or a Pro or something, like if you already have that, that's great. And if you can get it running, that's even better. But I do want to note that if you're looking to buy new, look hard at the frame, especially if you have a large Steam library, because it runs XR type capabilities. So it can run VR as well as its own version of an OS that's going to be Linux based. And it will run almost any game that is Steam compatible. It will run out of day one. So suddenly you open up your Steam library and you can play all of them in a screen right in front of you. So just keep that in mind too. Like, it's a value add there. If the frame is a good price, that's another big benefit of it. If you're
One of
like, I don't want that, I don't care for that, then look even harder at Pimax and some other options.
That's one of the things that I'm really interested in the most is even in Valve's own initial pitch with the Steam box, the Steam VR, and Steam frame, and all that stuff like that. The Steam controller, Steam box, and Steam frame. They had a guy playing with his controller, with the Steam controller, with the Steam frame on a couch, playing like 2D games, and they're really, really pushing like the theater mode. Play all your 2D game libraries on Steam VR, in big
It's like
theater
Vision
mode.
Pro.
And
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And they're really, I think that's going to be one of the things that is a big selling point, a sleeper selling point, is actually just being able to sit there in your bed or on your couch without a whole computer monitor setup and tower and everything, and just pick up a controller, slap on a headset with a computer and your games built into it, and just not even play VR games, but play some games on a really, really good, big, giant screen, a big playing in the theater. As big
Especially,
as you want it.
and Paul hit the other and the on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Getting something used and tapping your toe in the water, and it can run on a normal computer and whatever. That's a great thing to do, especially if the frame comes in too expensive. To kind
Yeah.
of just tread water for a few months. Hopefully, the price comes down. That kind of thing. So,
And if you end up liking it so much, you can then upgrade and get really good VR, and then you can give the gift of VR to another VR citizen out there someday. Maybe your little brother or something.
So, I will say that generally speaking, as for based on what I can hear, that because in my experience, the oldest still modern VR headsets can still run Star Citizen. So like there's no problem.
Good pizza still.
Yeah, it's pizza's good as pizza. But for Star Citizen specifically, it's very, very agnostic when it comes to input. So because now that Pimax has got even more support, Pimax is doing heavy work with they're not sponsoring necessarily, but they are promoting. They're definitely giving free or
It's one of the
test.
games that can push
Yeah.
Pimax's hardware and software the most. Like I said, most VR games are supposed to run on a potato so that it can be as wide of a net that they can throw and cast to people buying it. And Star Citizen does not care about that. So the Pimax is very, very happy to be able to push, all the stuff that they, like there's no game that really runs all of this stuff,
Yeah, and then you've got the Valve, I guess what is it, HTC headsets, which should work fine as well. Some of the even the newer ones. So
I will say, if touch controls and hand tracking and stuff is a big deal with eventually being able to pick up and aim guns, right? Pimax ain't it.
No.
It has the slam tracking, which is inside out from the headset. These require the lidars that you mount to the wall, and those have 1,000 hertz refresh rate. They pick up literally one-to-one movements. Yeah, those. Yep,
the lighthouses. Yeah,
those they pick up one-to-one movements with the hands. And you've played VR games with those touch controllers. The response time on your hands, incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really, really
even
quick.
on that, even in the CV1, you do not get that with the Pimax because it's inside out tracking. The Quest 3 is a little bit better with its inside out tracking, but it's running at a lot lower resolution and it doesn't have as much, performance to worry about. So that's the one I'd say drawback is if aiming the FPS gun and reaching out and grabbing things is going to be huge for you. Pimax is subpar in that department, but they do have a lighthouse faceplate that you can plug in, and it taps into your lighthouses that you already have mounted, and then you have full tracking, like you just did before. So it is a paid optional upgrade to get it that way, but hang on, my wire.
The other one?
By default, it is not. So
there's one more sleeper probably next year is if Samsung decides to take another crack at the HMD market. The
Mm.
first iteration wasn't that great, but they did show a lot of heart in it and they showed a lot of capabilities. If they do another one next year, it would be a really interesting multi-dog race going on for the future of HMDs.
The big thing to really emphasize, though, especially for Star Citizen fans, is that there is options, and you if you can run Star Citizen, you can run a headset, and there's a headset for you. It's just a matter of make sure you're pairing it for the right um uh graphics card you have. Like I've got a 9070 XT from AMD, so it's 16 gigs.
20 gigabyte, 16, 20 gigabyte. Yeah.
16 gigs. And right now SC is already being like, no, like it's taking 10 of the gigs, being like mine, because it needs the power, but it shows. But I could still probably use, because I'm running this and it's running fine. I could probably run the higher end
now
headsets as well. But if you have a lower end, it's still there. So it was a matter of like pairing what your price and your capabilities are in terms of your equipment. Is there anything else you want to say before we move on? Because we can wrap this up.
That's outside looking in. I don't have a headset. Now, if we're talking upgrading, I already have a headset. Ultra wide, if FOV is tantamount to you, right? OLED, if pure blacks and the depths of space are important and visual fidelity is what you're looking for. So that's like Pimax OLED, PSVR2 OLED, Sony OLED screens are in both the Pimax and the Sony PSVR2. I hear a lot of people with the Sony PSVR2 on computer are having a really, really good time. So that might be a sleeper option to look into. I'm hearing a lot worse frustrations coming out of the Quest people than I am out of the Sony people, believe it or not, on PC. So with that being said, if ergonomics is the big thing, some people, like, as much as FOV is awesome, they have a thin, weak neck and they can't wear a brick on their face. Big Screen Beyond 2 is king of ergonomics, which is a really, really tiny, thin
super
headset.
small.
So you have to get your face scanned to fit the face gasket into it. So it's like perfectly like figured to your eyelids.
I think if I remember correctly, Radar Ranger has one of those, because it looks like it basically looks like an actual futuristic goggles. Yeah. But it's like futuristic. It's the thing that, in TV shows when they're like, oh, it's VR, they would just take ski goggles and like add some like cardboard and spray paint it put some diodes on it. Like, oh yeah, it's VR, man. Like it actually looks like that.
I personally don't like that because I get hot really easily. I sweat a lot, and like that'd just be right on top of my eyes, and I'd feel like it'd feel hot all the time. I like the Index and the Pimax because there's a gap in the nose, and that allows for breathing room to get in and out and stuff. So another big thing is you are going to get stuffy in VR. You're wearing, practically ski goggles on your face that are generating heat because it's a LCD or OLED display, right? So if you're at a cockpit, highly suggest get a fan, just a simple little fan that just points at your face. You'll be able to go way, way longer sessions. If you're playing in room scale, turn on the fan before you start. You will forget and be a big old bag of sweat by the time you remove the headset.
If I could add
on that note, leather face gaskets instead of foam. Foam is the stock default that comes with 99% of headsets. The first thing I do is immediately buy a fake leather gasket replacement. That way I can just wipe it down, with a bit of alcohol and a towel and stuff, and it doesn't soak into the actual fabric and stuff. I'm a big sweaty boy. So
go ahead. Your last thoughts there, Roger?
For ventilation, the Vision Pro is the best one I've ever had.
Interesting.
And I would honestly, on the used market, they're down to like, I think 1,200, 1,500 around there for the M2s. That's are perfectly good.
That's a pretty good headset for that price.
Yeah, and people don't sweat as much in them. They have a pair of fans, and the ventilation goes clear through the entire system from the top to the bottom. You can feel the little perforations on the bottom of the metal, and then all the way at the top, there's huge slits that just run constantly, these fans. I would say that the way that has the fiber material around it, it wicks away from you too, pretty well. So you might want to buy a new gasket or something, which ain't cheap. A full gasket setup's like $200 and it's fitted for you. Your head, it actually scans your head with LiDAR from your phone, or they can do it at the store. But anyway, when those things prices come down, like not the M2, not the new M5, but the next generation of Vision Pros, if they can knock, say, $1,200 off the brand new price point, which it looks like the rumors are true that they will. The problem was the Sony screens had such a low yield rate. They were like below 20%. They had to throw out 4 out of 5 of them for the use case.
But yeah, they finally got
So
their
they
production
cost
up and running, which has taken so long
yeah,
for the Pimax stuff
it
as
was a
well.
grand more to the cost. It was literally $1,000 of the cost was because the screens were that expensive to make. The BOM, the build of materials was that much more expensive. So the next generation of Vision Pros, whether they use Sony screens or not, are going to be much better for that. So they will be. You mentioned sleepers on the higher end; they will be a sleeper too. But sorry, I'm going long winded. But the point is, there's plenty of options. You're not going to go wrong. It's not a Dreamcast situation. Any of these headsets you can get running, and Chachi's community is one of those great resources to help you get started in Star Citizen and get it running.
The Verse Discord, spelled VRSE. We are the best resource for Star Citizen and VR. If you have questions, like I said, we have the role system where you can literally ping the exact type of headset and be like, hey, who owns this and what do you think of it? Will it run on this? What do you think of it? Are the visuals good? Is the FOV good? Come by the Discord and you can get your questions answered, whether it's support or just VR in general. So, and once they get org and social tools in Star Citizen, we're going to be doing a lot more VR group stuff. Hopefully I got a big event this March, the next couple of weeks, that we'll be doing to kind of test the waters on that. I got a lot of plans for the VR community. So.
Paul, thank you for letting us talk. We're like bottles of pressure. Like we wanna share the joy of VR.
Well, I am a more casual VR player, and I will say that you do get the perspective of the game much more with it, and it is something that, like I said, that's the reason why I pulled out my old 9-year-old, 10-year-old headset here. Is that a 10-year-old headset for like $100 will show you what it looks like in really good detail. It's a little screen door effect where you kind of have like these two, like
pixelated.
It's a little blurry at times, but
the biggest thing is like text on the MFD. Like when you go from like the CV1 to an index and then index to 4K, the biggest thing you notice immediately is that screen door effect and like looking at the text. You don't have to lean forward to read the text on the MFD. It's fully like like reading the book pages out of Area 18 and stuff. Yeah. Like it's so crisp because it's 2 4K displays. If you're at a home right now and you have a 4K display, put your nose up to it and you'll see the pixel density that I'm half talking about. Now shrink it down, double that, and now you're talking about what I see through those lenses.
So we're gonna take a break. We're gonna get something to drink, use some restroom, and when we come back, we're going to take questions from the audience. If you are watching this after the fact, thank you for watching it. Check us out on where podcasts are, because if you're listening to this in the podcast format, I have fallen behind, but I caught up. This will be coming out as a full podcast for this section and the question and answer session as one solid 2-hour plus, probably more like 3-hour like podcast for you to listen to. Lightweight format, so just audio, so you can pick that up, and it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that kind of thing.
Again, thank you also for having us on. I've talk all day and have been waiting and itching to talk for years about this, and finally it's my time.
Thank you for Chachi, because when we talked about how we were going to do something on VR, I was like, I got to get Chachi on, because I know Chachi is the VR person to talk about this, the VR citizen. And thank you to Red J. Make sure you check out Chachi and Red J on their social medias. Chachi, it's is it Chachi Sanchez in YouTube?
Chachi _Sanchez on YouTube, Twitch, and in game if you wanted to friend me and stuff like that. So
and then Red J, it's Red J on YouTube, right?
Yep.
All right.
And I'm always available on Discord too if anybody wants to chat or has any questions. I mean, but
and if you have any VR technical information or like have specific VR thing that you need help with, just don't be afraid to ping me on my Discord. And if I can't answer it because I don't own the headset, I can point you to somebody that does, that can answer it. So I'm a resource. Use it. Use me.
With that being said, as always, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you did enjoy this, like the video, subscribe for more content, and hit the bell icon to be notified when these release. We do these live Saturdays at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. Eastern? Yes, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. We'd love to have you come join us live here at twitch.tv/theastropub or youtube.com/the Captain Stable Podcast or / the Captain Stable Podcast on YouTube to come in the future and ask your own questions. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for hanging out. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.